This is the Dreamers Podcast, where dreamers share their stories to inspire you. Now, join host Joe Pardo as he interviews a dreamer who's living their dreams.
Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pardo, and today I'm interviewing Len Testa for the second time, who is living his dream by making a career out of visiting Disney World. Welcome back to the show, Len.
Thanks again for having me, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing outstanding.
Still.
It's amazing.
For you.
So in the last episode, we cut it off because you have so many awesome stories to tell that we need to make it a two-parter because you're just a larger-than-life personality.
It's a charitable way of saying I talk a lot, but thank you.
You're very welcome. But thank you for being on the show. So what steps did you take to get started?
So it's kind of a funny story, but once Bob and I decided we wanted to do the website, we went to our publisher at the time, the book publisher at the time, and we said, hey, we want to do this website. Do you want to host it? We'll write the content, but do you guys want to put this on your infrastructure because, do you want to control it? Because, it's your book and it's, it's the most popular travel book in the world. I can understand how, people want to control that. And they said no. They didn't want to go through the expense of managing the website. This is back when websites were expensive, right? So we ended up doing it ourselves. So I built the entire website from scratch. And I'm a programmer, computer programmer by trade, so it wasn't particularly difficult, but it was a new set of skills. Took me a while to figure it out, but we built the first version of the website. We ran it for a couple of years, and it was just a total labor of love. Weren't making any money on it. It was just there to support the book. We would do book updates, and we would do touring plans, and answer emails and stuff. And over time, the success of the website really sort of tracked, or the growth of the website really tracked sort of the growth of the internet. That every year from 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, more and more people, writing in or using the site. And at one point, around, I guess 2005, I was answering like 10,000 emails a year. So you think about that, it's 30 emails a day. Wow. Just in the book. We were getting way more, because it's easier to write an email than it is put a letter in the mail, right? So, I'm answering all of these emails, and at the time we had a policy that said, it was a policy that Bob and I had started off with, it. We have to answer every email. Only those people who worked on the book could answer the email. And at the time it was Bob and me. And, I'm talking to Bob, I'm like, dude, this is killing me, because I had a full-time job. And this, at the time, and this was a part-time thing. So we started adding content to the website to answer the questions that we got. So people have questions like, what do I do with this particular, how do I adapt this particular touring plan to my situation? And we'd give them some tips, or what's the best sort of tickets to buy? And we would give them some tips, or, what's your favorite hotel? And we would sort of rank the hotels. But it was all sort of basic web pages back from when the internet first started. And the thing that we realized, though, was over time, the number of emails that we got not only weren't going down, but they were getting more complicated. So, and here's why, right? So first of all, anybody that had a question that had the book, if they couldn't find an answer in the book, and the book was 700 pages at the time, if they couldn't find the answer in the book, they would come to the website. And we had started putting on the website all of the questions that we got most frequently. So the questions that we were left with were ones that were so, obscure or so difficult that they weren't answered in a 700-page book, and they weren't answered on the website. Because more and more people were using the website, and we were filtering out all of the easy questions on the book and on the site, all I was left with was this growing volume of progressively harder questions to answer. And people would write in these super detailed letters, 3 pages long on what they plan to do for a particular day, and they would ask these questions should I do this or this or this or this, and it was really hard. We were trying to answer all of them, but it was taking me about half an hour to answer one question at a time. So it was getting a little crazy. And one of the most frequent questions that we were getting was, what's the best day of the year to visit? What's the best time to visit Disney World? So we came up with a crowd calendar and put that on the site, and that was super popular. That got us a lot of notice. And then we started adding tools like, different touring plan templates. We currently have 150 of them on the site, but we started off with 24. And we slowly added, things to the site. We added attraction reviews, so we can update the attraction reviews and stuff like that. But now, thank God, the last year that I answered emails was 2010, 2009 maybe. But I answered 16,000 emails that one year just on the book and the website, which works out to be, How many is that a day, Joe?
Let me break out my calculator because I'm not a math magician like you are.
Yeah. Hold on one second, I'll tell you.
16,000 divided by 65.
It's about 44 emails a day.
Yeah. Holy crap.
So I was spending virtually all of my time, answering emails. So finally, we hired Geraldine to start answering the email for us, which freed me up to do more development on the website. After a while, it got to the point where the site was really big, relatively speaking. We were getting a few thousand hits a day, and you're sort of at the point where even the development work, the things that people were asking for, was taking up more time than I could devote to it. So even now with somebody answering all the email, I still didn't have enough time to add in all the features that people were requesting from the site. So I ended up taking some of the money from subscriptions that we had and hiring our first employee, which was Henry. Henry Work. You've met Henry, right?
I've never actually met him, but I have talked to him at least once or twice.
Oh, cool. So that was fantastic. Actually, Henry was one of the best first employees you could ever have at a company. Worked like a dog, smart kid, loved Disney. So he actually set about, for a while, he maintained the first version of the website that I had written myself. But then he, in his spare time, did a complete rewrite of the website to bring it on a more solid framework footing. And once we had somebody working on the site full time, it really took off. It took a few months, but from like 2010 to 2011, 2011 to 2012, the site just exploded in terms of growth. Yeah, we hired more employees. Eventually, at the end of 2012, we hired people to go into the parks full time. So we had one person in Orlando, one person in Anaheim. We had Henry. We had our customer service person, Geraldine. It was like a little mini business, and I was still doing it part time, at night after work. At the end of 2011, I made the decision to do touring plans full time. And that was sort of a big leap because I was leaving a pretty comfortable corporate job that I loved my job. So that was a little bit of a difficult decision, but it ended up being the right one. It was scary, but it's fun. I realized it. So I was at my old job one day, and somebody was actually going to Disney, and they, through a series of common friends, they found me. So I'm on a conference call, talking about something completely unrelated, talking about an actual a work thing. And this guy's like, "Hey, I'm going to Disney. I hear you're the person." And he asked me a couple of questions, and so I answered them. And he's like, "From the enthusiasm in your voice, I can tell that you really love it." So we get through the conference call, and then 5 minutes after the conference call ended, not my boss, but my boss's boss, who was on the call, called me and said, "What are you doing here?" which was really interesting. I'm like, "Dude, I don't know how to take that." And he was like, No, you're an excellent employee. We love you, but you can tell you like doing this other thing, this Disney thing better. Why are you here?" He's like, "Dude, I'm gonna miss you. I would totally understand." So I thought about it. Like a month later, I gave them my notice, and he's like, "Look, I'm not even gonna try and talk you out of it." it was really interesting. He's like, "Yeah, don't take this the wrong way, but what are you doing here?"
Did they know about your book and the website?
Oh yeah. So it was funny. So not only my boss's boss, but I'm not gonna mention any names. But so I used to work for American Express. Within the American Express leadership organization, one of the top 10 executives came to me for help a couple of times with family trips. So everyone in my leadership team, from my boss to my boss's boss to my boss's boss's boss. I don't think the CIO actually knew what I did, but certainly within they had a general idea of what I did. And I would walk these people through the website and everything. And the other thing is this, and this was super cool. I had one boss. I was a decent enough employee that no one ever actually kept track of like my vacation time. And I don't do that actually when I run touringplans.com. No one at American Express ever kept track of my vacation time, sick time, anything like that. The idea was if you needed the time, you took it. If you and obviously when there were things that needed to be done urgently, you would stay to get it done. And in the end, it would all work out. But it was great. It was great working for them, but time to move on to this. It's kind of funny.
When you got started as a full-time job, was it difficult to ramp up into a full-time position with it?
Yeah, in terms of doing the work, no, because I'm a workaholic anyway, and I like the job. The thing that was hardest was leading people. So in the role that I had before, I was sort of an individual contributor. I had a group of people that I advised on technical matters, but they weren't my direct reports, right? They weren't my employees. They were somebody else's employees. And I was sort of like the person that they came to for technical support. And there were, any time between 50 and 100 of them, my days were full. But it's different when people report directly to you. There's much more personality stuff there. So learning how to be a good boss. Learning how to be a good boss took more than a year, and I didn't think it would take that long, and I grossly underestimated that. But I had the basic policies down. Like, again, I treat everybody like an adult, and again, I don't keep track of vacation time or sick time or things like that. You need the time, take the time. But if I need to call you at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning because the website's down, I'm going to call you, and it's all going to work out. But just dealing with giving people feedback and direction and accepting feedback from them, that took a lot longer to get to a point where I'm comfortable with it now. I think I'm decent at it now. I'm not great by any means, but certainly when Henry was our first employee, I pitied the kid because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I was his boss, and that was tough. I'm sure it was hard on him, but I've got better over the years. So.
Well, getting old's like wine; it gets better with time.
Yeah, and I kind of understand this. I periodically talk to my people, the people I used to work with at American Express, and including the people that were above me, and I'm like, the stuff, the policies that corporate America puts in place might look idiotic. When you join a company, you might wonder why. Why does the company do this or not allow this? But once you're in a leadership position, you kind of understand where it all comes from. The other interesting thing that I realized, and this took a long time too, was you really can't focus on more than 2 or 3 things at a time. Ideally, the number's 2. So when you start a company, when you're running your own business, there might be 60 things that need your attention. I can focus on 2 of them, and you have to keep the most important things. The sort of, this sounds like a management book, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah, but like, so for us, I've always measured the company's success in terms of revenue, how much money we make, and because we're a startup and money is important. So realizing that means that the focus is on generating revenue. So we look at metrics around that every day. And so anyway, the main thing there is just the couple of things that you need to focus on. You need to focus on that. Other stuff you need to delegate. And I think that's where a lot of people fail at things. They don't delegate well, or I'm perfectly comfortable delegating things to people. So I
think part of that is finding the right people.
We should be on CNBC. Yeah, that's the thing. And we have great people. And the thing that I really look for in people, or the thing that I appreciate, is the people who are willing to take on tasks that are outside of their comfort zone. At the beginning of last year, I told one of our developers, Sarah, the developer that's been with us as long as I'm, look, we have a certain kind of architecture right now where we're on one computer with some redundancy built in, but I want to move to the Amazon cloud. And her obvious response, and I said, I want you to do it. You're going to lead it. And Sarah had absolutely no idea. She had no experience with the Amazon cloud. It's a whole different architecture, a whole new ball of wax, doing things that she'd never done before. I'm like, look, figure it out. It's not that hard. And she did it, right? So somebody who was typically a coder, a good one, but had to learn this whole other set of architecture skills that she never had. And she did it, and she pulled it off, and now we're on a much better architecture. But that's the sort of thing that I appreciate as an employer. Like, tomorrow I could ask you, Joe, if you're my employee, like, Joe, I need you to figure out a way where we can measure how much the average meal costs or how much the average purchase is at the Emporium on Main Street. I have no idea how you're going to do it, but I have faith that you're going to do it. Come to me if you need help.
I could do that for you.
Yeah, I mean, so do you know how would you do it? If I told you, Joe, tell me, when people go up to the register at the Emporium, how much do they spend on average? How would you figure that out? This is actually a question that we got, and I'll tell you how we did it.
One of 2 ways. One, I would have to just go chill in the Emporium for a few hours a day for maybe
not a bad
like
idea.
A week, and just take a look. Your eyes
so like
and
glance
ears.
At the register.
Or I would get your surveys. If they have any kind of information like that, and then you aggregate the information, and that's when you start playing with the numbers to figure out averages and maybe find out information you didn't even realize you could figure out with that kind of information.
Interesting. We didn't think of that approach. That's pretty good. We ended up picking up receipts off the ground when people threw them away. You'd be hundreds of them, dude. You have no idea how inaccurate people are when they're throwing away receipts until you stand by the Emporium. Yes, hundreds per day.
Wow. Well, you don't need a receipt to return things there. So you could just use your credit card. So there's really no reason to keep a receipt. Yeah,
so we average them all out, and whether that's we think it's a representative sample because I don't think people who spend more would have better aim. If anything, you'd think that the smaller purchases would tend to have the receipts to throw away because you know that you're not going to return it. But anyway, it was an interesting idea.
I'm sure I would have picked up on that being at the Emporium and noticing that people are just throwing the receipts out like as soon as they walk out the door.
And missing. That was, I'm like, we were dumpster diving. We were picking them up off the ground. It's not like we were reaching into the trash cans. Yeah, it was sort of an interesting thing. But that's what we look for in employees. People who are willing to, do the things that are required of them, even if it's not in their comfort zone. So.
You sound like an awesome boss.
I'm getting there. I'm better than I was. Let's put it that way.
So moving along, were there any roadblocks with all of this? I guess what major roadblocks did you hit with switching over? You kind of touched on some of them, but was there any real big roadblocks with going full time?
No, I am perfectly happy to wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock every morning and be in the office by 7. It's the leaving work that's difficult for me. So in that respect, if you're going to be a workaholic, you should work for yourself. The only real impact so far is that sometimes the travel takes me away from my family, more than I think most people. It's almost like being on the road for a regular company. So there are times when, like for example, if Universal is going to open Diagon Alley, right, and they're going to open it, I'm making this up, but if they're going to open it on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If that's when the media event is going to be, I have to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? Regardless of whether that impacts my family or, family commitments or stuff like that. Sometimes that's the part really that stinks the most. But, during summers and stuff like that, if it works out, then obviously everyone gets to come along. And there have been instances where we've done really great research trips involving the entire family. So that's not bad. So hopefully in the end, it all evens out. Don't think it has yet, but it's getting closer.
Well, you seem to do a pretty good job of balancing all these different things together between the podcast, the full-time job, and another full-time job on top of that before going on to just one full-time job.
Yeah, sort of like it's a vacation. Yeah, exactly. Only one full-time job.
So has there been any parts of your dream that haven't quite worked out yet?
I thought by now we would have expanded to other non-Disney destinations. So the pace at which things happen sort of hasn't lived up to my dreams. But again, that was, I always want things to be done tomorrow. That's, I think eventually we'll start covering other destinations beyond Disney, especially with the travel tools that we've developed. I thought we would have done it, last year or this year. We haven't done it yet, but hopefully in 2015. That's sort of the big thing. I'm always anxious to get things done and move on. That's sort of that's both a curse and a blessing.
Yeah, you seem to have really been able to do that since, going full time. I mean, very rapidly, it seemed like you were going from just Disney World to Disneyland, now to Universal,
Disney Cruise Line. Definitely at Universal Studios Hollywood this year because they're going to do Harry Potter next year. And then beyond that, we're sort of trying to figure out whether we stay in the theme park business and do things like Disneyland Paris and Tokyo Disneyland, or whether we branch out and do things like Washington, D.C., New York, Paris, London.
Well, you have a Vegas book, right?
We have a Vegas book, and we've talked about doing a Vegas app. The thing that we're trying to figure out is what people would want out of the app that can't be got from the book. Like, what would the travel tools be? Obviously, you can do touring plans. This is actually interesting. We've done touring plans of the Vegas casinos, and if anybody wants them, drop me a line. We wrote them a couple of years ago. But one of the things that we realized was that a lot of people go to Vegas really just to walk around. Like 40%, in some estimates, 40% of the people who, once they're done gambling, or besides gambling, one of the things that they go for is literally just to see the casinos and the architecture in the casinos. So we did touring plans of all the casinos on the Strip, including all of the the pool areas, which some of them are very, very pretty, and then things like where to find Elvis at the MGM and things like that. And that was a lot of fun. But you've been to Vegas, right, Joe?
No, I haven't. I think I'm supposed to go this summer, though.
You should totally go. When you go, let me know. It's huge. It's a ton of walking, way more walking. It's like Disney World in terms of walking. So just to give you an example, so the Caesar's Palace is roughly across the street from the Venetian and the Palazzo. They're maybe like not quite catty corner, but close. If you park across the street on Las Vegas Boulevard from each other, if you park at the Caesar's Palace parking lot, it's a 1.5 mile walk across the street to the Venetian. 1.5 miles. It's farther around than it is going from one end of World Showcase all the way around it. Again, making a circle. That's only 1.25 miles. So imagine walking all of World Showcase. That wouldn't even get you across the street in Las Vegas. Yeah, it's crazy. So the touring plans that we had, we broke up into 4 sections, like sort of northeast side of the strip, southeast, southwest, northwest. So that was a lot of fun, and we're trying to figure out what other things we might do for Vegas, because there's not really public. I mean, there's a monorail, but there's not really public transportation in Vegas, and there's a ton of stuff to see. There's shows and things like that.
There is a roller coaster there, isn't there?
There are a couple, yeah. There's one in the Stratosphere. There's one at New York, New York. There's the new Ferris wheel, which is it's interesting. We stopped by there a couple of weeks ago. It's sort of like the London Eye Ferris wheel, but you've got, I think, up to 24 people. So you're in these like sealed, air-conditioned capsules that go around the Ferris wheel. It takes 30 minutes to go all the way around, and so you're kind of stuck with those 24 people for 30 minutes. So if you get a group of people that you like, or if you have a big enough group and you can take up an entire capsule, then it's a lot of fun. If you're stuck on there with a bunch of drunk, 18-year-olds this is their first time to Vegas, and one of them starts throwing up, then all of a sudden it's not that pleasant. So it really comes down to who you ride with. Also, it's way better at night. So it's situated right at the strip, and so you can see a lot of the strip. During the day, there's a lot of sort of bleak desert look, although you do get to see the airplanes land because McCarran Airport is like right behind the strip, but it's way better at night.
Well, another idea would be, and I don't know what the percentage of people that are going to Las Vegas that have dinner reservations, but what if you did like wait times for dinner?
Yeah, like at the buffet.
But yeah, I know it sounds like funny, right?
No. There's actually a line to get in the buffet at the more popular places, so it's not a bad idea. Buffet lines. That's what it should be. The buffet lines. That's the idea for the ad. That's not a bad idea.
You get that one for free, Len.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Joe.
Anytime. So if you were stranded on a deserted island with your family, what 3 things couldn't you live without?
Oh, man. So I actually had this conversation with Laurel the other day. One would be a computer. So Laurel, I don't know how we got on the subject, but Laurel and I were talking about solitary confinement, right, in jail. And I think we were either listening to NPR or we were going through an old photo album from the family. Anyway, both Laura and I came to the conclusion that solitary doesn't sound all that bad because we're both introverts, right? So if you're an introvert, right, if you like being by yourself, how bad really is solitary confinement? And I was like, it would, if I had a computer and they put me in solitary confinement, obviously I'd miss my family and everything, but that wouldn't be too bad, right? So being without a computer would be the bad thing. I would need coffee because I don't think you would want to see me without coffee. What's the third thing that I would need? I feel like the professor on Gilligan's Island where I'd need some mechanism. Does sunscreen come with my island?
You can make it out of coconuts, can't you?
That's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you could, couldn't you? Coconut oil.
Yeah. I think that works, or is that the opposite?
No, I think it's actually sun tanning. Yeah, I think I need sunscreen. But let's assume that sunscreen is there. They'd have aloe vera or something on my island.
Oh, you can make mud.
That's true. Yeah. That's what rhinos do. What do I go with? A pirate outfit. That's what I'd go with. And just for when people came to rescue me, I'd be like, "Get off my island!" I think I'm gonna go with that.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Thanks.
So, what do your dreams for the future look like?
My ultimate dream is I'd really like to update the Unofficial Guide to Paris. I had this idea for the guide where I would go live in Paris for a year and stay at a different hotel every night. So 365 hotels in 365 days. Think about the things you could do with that. You could do like a calendar a day thing, besides all the reviews of the hotels, right? And sort of getting to know all of the different neighborhoods in Paris really well. You could write a book about just the experience, let alone writing a book about the hotels. But with we have a dog and a cat, so bringing the pets along for 365 days, let alone Laurel probably would not want Laurel would not want to stay in a hotel for 365 days. But still, I think I'd like to go update the Unofficial Guide to Paris. I think we could do something interesting there. That's sort of my big dream.
Oh, wow, that is a very big dream. I hope you get there, man. I mean, it takes a lot of money to make these dreams come true.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
So any last thoughts you'd like to share?
No, I appreciate the time. If anybody has any questions about anything, they can certainly contact me.
All right. How about some Twitter, Facebook, websites?
See, at Len Testa on Twitter. I just passed 10,000 followers on Twitter. I'm very happy with that. At Len Testa on Twitter. Email address, len@touringplans.com. The website is, of course, touringplans.com. And on iTunes, It's the Unofficial Guide Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill.
We forgot to even mention that. I love that show.
Thank you. Jim's awesome. That's actually I'm recording with him soon. He's one of the things we do every year for the Unofficial Guide is Jim does a series of stories for us, and how we typically produce it is I get on the phone with Jim and sort of walk him through different areas of the park and to sort of jog his memory about what stories or what he's heard about what's coming up, and it's one of the best parts of writing the book every year. So we decided to keep that format, but record a show and do it as a podcast. And we did the first one live in the Magic Kingdom. We actually walked through the Magic Kingdom and did a series of stories, and it was hysterical. So we've done about 60 of them now, 65 of them now. It's sort of irregular. It depends. A lot of it depends on when Jim's schedule and my schedule mesh, and especially in the spring when we're all traveling to produce new content. That's kind of tough, but it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to listen to, and I would recommend it to anybody who wants to either hear a good story or loves Disney.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
So, well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Len. I really appreciate it.
Cool. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co. My name is Al.
And I'm Joyce.
And we're huge Disneyland fans. In fact, we love the Disneyland Resort so much, we host a podcast dedicated to the happiest place on earth to share that passion with others.
That's right. On our show, Tales from the Mouse House Disneyland podcast, we share current resort news, some tips and tricks we've learned over the years to help make your Disneyland resort vacation the most magical experience ever. We uncover little-known and often overlooked gems we like to call hidden treasures, and even review the attractions and places to eat that make the Disneyland Resort so much fun.
And if that wasn't enough, we even share some video episodes to help keep you in that Disney magic state of mind. If you're a longtime fan of the Disneyland Resort, or you've just recently discovered the magic, this podcast is for you. You can find Tales from the Mouse House Disneyland podcast at www.talescast.com and in iTunes.
And remember,
make it a Mickey day.